Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question that is to kind of look at some of the deleterious or like negative effects. Basically, what I'm going to call basically a narcissist or psychopath shutdown in the devaluation stage in a relationship with these folks, with these types of gents, gals. Maybe they're charming, maybe they're not so much. We look at this so much as like a puzzle piece, not so much as a puzzle piece, but more of sort of a moving paradigm for you, because I feel in healing and understanding how to heal from narcissist or psychopathic abuse, a lot of people, they're looking for a silver bullet. They're looking for that one magic key. They're looking for the one thing, and then all of a sudden their life is going to be better. That's maybe how you imagine healing. So you have to, when you look at healing, you have to actually look at how you look at healing and where do you believe within that sort of emotional plasma mode that you have the capability, the confidence, the wherewithal, the substance to heal in the way that your heart is calling forth. So it's sort of, and I feel that this really in sort of section of the map of your journey where it's like, oh my gosh, where's the horizon? Where is the island? Where's the mainland? Where's my home? Where's my home rootedness? So it's this feeling of connection that is deep, that oftentimes is sort of overlooked. It's sort of put into a superficial layer, if you will. So when we talk about the relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath, oftentimes their emotions are superficial, meaning they don't have a lot of weight, meaning sort of substance behind them. Why? That isn't exciting, thrilling, or it doesn't do anything for their ego or get them anywhere to have what you would maybe consider a connection. So when you are in, and this is sort of also parlaying off a viewer comment that spoke about the power of self-talk in healing. And so I really want to get into this really sort of emotional moose-like area, that we need to really, that is kind of the sweet layer of things that might taste good to you right now if you're sick of the bitter anger, the bitter humility, the bitter sacrifice kind of feeling that you're always standing on one leg. It's, you've got that emotional discomfort and there's sort of this wobbly effect after what I would basically call here, that I want to discuss, which is I would call like a narcissist or psychopath shutdown, or where they really want to be in that devalue stage and get to the point where they sort of diffuse your happiness connection or joy box, if you will, that whole place of existence. They sort of have a way of removing the wires, kind of like removing the wires from a battery. That inner connection that brings you joy is usually something simple, a hug, a kiss, a dream. Maybe, it's a goal that you have together, but it's something that ignites you. And that needs to grow and needs to build for you to feel, hey, life is okay. I'm not missing out or I'm missing on things. So don't worry about it. In a relationship with these types of individuals, realize that they are going to want to close down all circuits. I think that's sort of they're wanting to shut down all circuits in a number of ways. That really shuts down especially your power. And namely, they just sort of flatten you out by certain, I would say, superficial emotions where depth is required, and they are lacking because they have an attachment disorder. They have a problem connecting and relating to others in a way that can be sort of mutually beneficial, ways that can hold other people accountable. Or, hey, it's more that, hey, we are encroaching on my feelings or my space. It's these etheric sort of energies first that you feel that you're, when they walk by, they sort of just walk too fast. Their energy just seems like it has like a blazer or a tuxedo with tailcoats all the way. Just, yeah, let me just swoop all of you up and get all of you riding on my tail, as if they're the magnetic. They want to feel this magnetic in charge, in power. If you look at politicians, they're basically salivating, okay? These people are chomping at the bit. Whatever their built up scenario is in their mind, and God knows it's never big enough, 1 billion to 2 billion to 18, these people, there's an insatiability. And oftentimes, if you have a chronic insatiability or unhappiness, that's oftentimes not a great way to live. To always be responding to, I don't have enough, or I don't, especially now with advertising that's 2 seconds long. And so their advertisers are now sort of taking advantage of that response, that what you would call the reptilian response. There's a lot of information's written about this. TED Talks, the 3 brains. So it's like we have a very, very ancient brain, evolved over 250 million years. You have to understand the exquisite just machinery. I don't even want to say machinery, but just different, just unlimited possibilities for people to grow and evolve their life when that joy is connected, when things are contented, and you're not always disturbed by this color, or little things that sort of make you feel that you're cut off the mainland, cut off connection with your spouse, with your employer. They want to sort of create this gulf that's deeper and deeper. And to what degree can you emotionally drought yourself and sort of deprive yourself from that juiciness, that mousse sweetness of life? Your plugs get undone, the circuits and then others are ignited. And this really, oftentimes realize that then your feelings and thoughts as a circuitry that the narcissist will keep spinning around for you. They will keep little pellets or little things that you might think that, hey, we still have a chance. Things you're going to be happy. You're not going to break into a rage. You're not going to do this to me again. These are either the very, very slow and gradual shutdowns that begin to develop in that sort of middle layer of a relationship, and it engulfs your whole brain because your future is then set with this energy, this person. In other words, you then are you're trying to move forward with this newly found baggage, almost like emotional lead, and you're like the steel of love, or your desire, your lust. These are like your high butane. If you're running on these ethers, you're gonna fry yourself out. You can't make a cake that's good enough. You can't be there on time enough. They don't want to do things if such and such. They're very hard to get to do things. Incorrigible. And then you're having to adjust to this steel. And in my study of psychology, a really significant element is that sort of steel wiry structure. When you talk about like in psychology, there's the first relationship that a child has with their mother. And if it's warm and nurturing, these things are good. But if it's cold, unnurturing, or sort of metallic-like steel, colds, this is very detrimental to the actual physical development, meaning the size of that baby, how much they could take in, their reaction, their pupils, all these things are tested, to see the effects. And of course, they're going to start with monkeys or what have you. And there's, I'm trying to think of it, if it's the Reese monkey test. It's a classic study, but it really sort of harkens into this cycle, sort of hot to colds, and then cold and hot at the same time. There's these incongruencies, these clashes. So like thunder, these storms, in the relationships can be exciting. You don't know if there's going to be a big rainbow. Maybe new flowers are going to come up, or are we going to be flooded out? Did we lose the home? Are we in hurt? Did we really get all engulfed in? And to what degree are you sort of still, swept along by this person? Meaning you've been shut down to the degree of a complete sort of self-doubt or self-doubt, and that insecurity has sort of begun to rule the roost, rule the household, rule your body, rule. What we're talking about is that old limbic brain. TED Talks, the three brains. This is your emotional brain. This is what's evolved over millions of years. So it's the brain that goes, if you see a snake and it starts to jump on you, you don't need to check it out. Oh, is this nice? Is this cute? Is this going to be friendly? You're going to go like that. You don't have to think twice, okay? It's like direct, excuse me, shouldn't be coughing here. I should have my water. But, you should, that reactivity of trying to get this snake off is sort of, that is your limbic brain. If you can, I want to give you sort of an experiential and sort of a takeaway, because this sort of system is what is hooked and manipulated and taken advantage of in a cycle that involves some reward for you. And relationships are supposed to be mutually rewarding. There's nothing wrong with that. But what it encroaches or begins to shred up or sliver your etheric energy, your emotional say, your voice, your feeling, your preferences, your largeness, your growth, what you want to build. So, unless you're really into a tiny home or a tiny home, or want a really small life, or, maybe that encroaching, that shredding down, it's like, basically, it's like a shredder. They put you through an emotional shredder. Little by little, they win little teeny, little bitty things that you either, have been, unbeknownst to you, you were in that reactive, that limbic. They started to, quote unquote, own you limbically. Maybe it was, it's a good feeling to look up to someone, or to be nurtured, or to be led, or to say you're strong and thank you and appreciate that about you. But that has to be like in return. Oh, you're so cuddle, soft. Your flan could, sails me away to Jupiter. So, it has to be reciprocal in your own way. Otherwise, it's like you are bleeding, emotionally bleeding, meaning it's ripped open that vein of connection where that life blood is supposed to flow through, and you're supposed to receive it. And if they're making you feel guilty for wanting something warm, connected, understanding, I got you. Do you see all these resonate differently when you begin to speak out what the body is sort of speaking out through you? And the body will speak out through you, like those studies that we so learned, the classic studies in psychology, just like how important that connection, that nurturing connection is, and that it isn't flawed with all sorts of other things that get in the way, put in a blockade to you sort of seeing what you need reflected back, and instead you're just getting an emotional wall. It's not like in return. And you might have said, oh wow, I am such a great this and that, I can do it all for us, I'm a great man, I'm a great provider, even if you're this, that, maybe all women are, but look at this woman, you might have done your whatever men do and make their accessions or whatever. And women, they need that sort of reliable, steadfast, like you start describing a car, can get you through the storm, not causing the storm, can plow through and over ice, like knows how to do some things to get that, others, that their strength. And then that building together, that mutual building is sort of razored off, if you will, I feel. And then one of our viewers had then spoken then literally about the importance then of self-talk. Doesn't that sound familiar? If you're shut down, meaning you have a voice where you didn't even know you had one. You have peace even though you didn't feel it there. You have dreams again even though you didn't know that your eyes could be reopened in a more pleasant way. Things begin to look a little bit more comfortable, enticing, and motivating now when you are able to, and things that you didn't even know that you could regulate, become able to be regulated in your control again. This, is when life begins to sort of begin more comfortably settling in, where your voice begins to speak up. And if it's anger, like from being shut down, or those negative self-talks, which the poison in that degradation is, if you get to the main, most potent tincture, it is one, I feel, of self-doubt. Sort of covers the whole thing for the whole person going on there, emotionally, psychologically, physically. Oh my gosh. I mean, you can doubt your shoulders, you can doubt your back, your legs, your cheeks, your ears, your whatever. I mean, they can create a lot of self-consciousness when really joy is to be free of self-consciousness, meaning I'm okay and I can flow. And I can go and grow and then begin to have discovery in my life and uncover some things and begin to do a new kind of sharing or moving into the saddle, where I want to experience things. And then a smile just pops up. It makes me think of like a child vacation. We went to South Dakota and rode horses in some of the Black Hills, and some of that really gorgeous desert area. If you get on a horse, but there's a coach there going, you got this girl, you got this guy, and you're scared because you're on this big animal, and then you begin to, they say, you got this, just right a little, and then a smile comes to your face, and then you realize, hey, this is a big animal, this is scary, but you pull up a little, and then the horse goes, oh yeah, I got it, you want me to look up. And then it's trotting along in your head. You might not want to make that a life hobby, but what I'm kind of paralleling it to is those experiences that life is going to have, and it just doesn't come in a cologne bottle. It doesn't come in a $30,000 rug. It doesn't come in whatever the complaints that are being warranted, namely alleged against you. It's this, instead of it being like, hey, we're here on this, it's always their shutdown is like a warrant. In other words, they're trying to police you when it's really the other way around. So people then lose an experience of self-regulation during that time. They sort of, it's like you didn't know that you didn't pick up the fork when you first got in the cafeteria line. You're like, I got the spoon, the knife, and they must be having soup today. And you realize they got all sorts of spaghetti or chicken or beef or what. You're gonna need a fork, and you get to, oh, I didn't even pick up a fork. How am I gonna eat this? And then it gets really, well, I can cut it, I can do that, and then you make a way, but you still feel like, I'm missing some sort of grace right now. It ain't looking good for me. I'm not feeling, something is off. Okay, I don't have something. In other words, there's this feeling of lack or concern and sort of security that something is wrong or off, and that you must somehow begin, protecting people or protecting yourself. And this can alarm any sort of, what they would consider confrontation, which it must just be dialogue. Like, excuse me, where do you want to go for dinner? Or something really normal. And then they're going to cause the doubt of you down to the foot. There's an energetic sort of, the way that they sort of throw it out like a blanket, but it feels like it's trying to put out your fire. Like if someone were to throw a fire over, like a literal blanket over you, that would be very uncomfortable. You can't see, really hear, and it's more than being blindfolded. It's a feeling of someone is trying to cover up or conceal, but you don't know it yet. You just have a sneaky feeling. And that can become a new normal for you. I mean, if you hold it there while you're brushing your teeth, you're driving, you're eating, you're talking, you're actually clenching on. And how do you, so in other words, you're armoring yourself. You're ready to fight. You can tell if you go like this to your jaw, and if you push underneath your ear, if you have like a lot of pain here, that means you're tensing up, okay? We used to joke, like, back in high school, remember the real athlete guys who would be all, 3 hours every day in the free weight room, and they'd have these big muscles, and I mean, they would flex to drink a bottle of, thing of milk. I mean, it was so funny. Why am I saying that? I don't know, but it reminds me of that they have to, there's always got to be an ego layer to this, and that ego layer sort of in their relationship, you could sort of encapsulate it, if you will. And encapsulate it, meaning realizing the energetic bullying where they use words, body language mainly, body language and emotion, things that you can't see, that encroach, that leave you in that sort of jolted, tensed up, stressed, which might be good if you're like a president and you're wanting to give a speech and you want to like amp it up for some point, but you don't want to be clenched up, or have your thoughts sort of clenched up, trying to the security of sort of processing, because it hasn't worked its way out. The mind, I think, wants to solve things. It wants to provide a solution. The emotional bullying, though, it tries to circumvent or overcome sort of that reality that you bring to the table, the I am of other people that oftentimes bring them, and then the intimacy is usually where it's gonna break off, okay? Like a dry stick, or like a karate guy breaking, there's certain really stages of that, that degrading devaluation stage. I think a member, or not a member of the Peace and Harmony channel, a viewer, had stated, that you're going through this. And this, this can be an ongoing stage, meaning you could have gotten here very gradually, even though it feels like it just arrived in a lump of clay in front of you that's really too heavy for you. You have to take it off pinch by pinch, little by little, and roll it into little game pieces that we can play with and work with, and really get it down to that little piece, where it's sort of balled up like an emotional meatball, and you go, okay, we're putting that on the pan. That is emotional, like they're emotional bullying, emotional put downs. They're vibrato. People always talk about a narcissist who has a pathological sense of self-importance coupled with a lack of empathy. So as far as they're concerned, they're like P. Diddy, strolling down the runway, dressed to the 9,000s. I mean, they're going to flash whatever his $35,000 whatever, he's going to push people off with that look at me. So he's not wanting, he's wanting all this direction. That can be an emotional bullying, because now that he has that power, there's all these other different things that the people could then lose self-governing if they're not sort of aware of it. And my concern, of course, is a lot of advertising is working that way, where they're sort of getting you into that subconscious, into that shutting you down. Listen to me. You don't have the latest model. You don't have the computer in your, you don't have, maybe it's even a password you don't have. Everything becomes every day. Things are growing more rapidly. And they're like, if we can't just slap you with our big emotional whale tail, if you can't get on, well then you're going to have to take this. And you get kind of emotionally slapped like the whale tail, basically cold, slimy, the power of that in psychology. And I'm kind of going back and forth so I can kind of show you, or kind of help you with your journey, or maybe this will help you with processing your feelings and working through them, because it's your reality. What is real? Okay, this is, this is, you go to the store, this is real chicken, this is real meat. You're not buying a big box of cereal of GMOs, or whatever, so that gets really made into a much smaller section of the energetic field. In other words, they fill up the room, the attic, the ballroom, the basement. Someone lights up a room. I mean, for all they care, they're the only one with a light. That's in their mind. They're the only one with the talent. They're the only one who can fill a dishwasher. They're the only one who can drive the car. They're the only one who, so there's usually the only sort of segregation. And then it's usually where there's, cutting you out, where it's like, you're just meant to fall off the chopping block and wish, how are you going to jump your way back to where you were? So there's this feeling of almost like an emotional emery board with, it can be very gradual, and you might have then conceded and then continued because you thought that was the thing to do. You thought, well, to keep things going, to hold it together, to save this, to save the planet, and then you had to do the unreal or go through something very painful to then come back and say, okay, right, there's blood here, there's something happening, and I can't quite even show you. The wound is right here. When I broke my wrist, you can see 19 stitches or whatever. She did a great job. My hand is working great, thank God. But that is easier to talk about. And, than and versus like a similar thing, like your emotional risk, your ability to function, get a grip on things, be happy, be content, not feeling that you're missing out, that you're butterfingers. There's always this feeling of disdain, or through the self-doubt. So if you then buy into that subconsciously, which means if you're coming to the relationship without the whole kit and caboodle of, I know how to protect myself, I have my own boundaries, I know my own standards, I know when too far is too far, I don't have to I don't have to live solutions for other people's mistakes anymore. I don't have to live other people's problems to solve them. When you realize these things, it becomes clear that there should be a distinct difference. There should be a distinct difference between being able to function because something is going to crop up. There's going to be a combustion level where it gets you shaking, it gets you nodding, this shouldn't happen anymore. Why is this? And then it's 15 years later, and you're wanting then to come back to that nurturing, that warm, that reality where your voice is intermingled with the other things going around in your world, meaning you're not hitting a blockade. Look, people have etheric, energetic fields that surround them. So, in other words, when you see a big football player that's 7'1" and 380, the guy's going to exude some strength, okay? That's, exuding some strength, confidence. You know what you can take on if that guy want to do a mile dash down the field. Do you want to see who wins? I'll bet you $50. I'm not going to throw away my $50. You're funny. Ha, ha, ha. Enjoy your day. Have a great day being a pro athlete. Congrats. Keep up. You're amazing. So that's like when you talk about the etheric energetic field, when you're talking about a narcissist or a psychopath, they have a way of sort of eradicating, engulfing, or allowing you to displace that, gone with the wind, and then you're sort of carried, or you're swept away with a relationship. You're in the flow. You think, hey, you might have hit a couple bumps, but who doesn't? And the truth is, everybody does get tripped up. No matter who you're thinking of, has had, a tough day, a bad day, has lost their car keys, etc. So it doesn't, so in your own understanding, if you were to show up to the game with a lot of these, understandings already, to know what to look for and say, hey, I'm not going to take that, or your understanding wasn't built already, and you see, hey, what is being built or what is being unbuilt or taken down, into what degree now am I through almost like a physical entrainment now in a cycle of self-sabotage, self-hate. This is when, you get everything going and then you just pour the coffee on yourself and you're like, I just got this. And self-sabotage, you begin to sort of, somehow ruin things, or you can't get footing. That's you're sort of burning off those energies of the negativity, the self-doubt that is part of the narcissist devaluation stage. Devaluing you, trying to put you in the muck and say, hey, see you later. You're in emotional quicksand now. I ain't gonna pull you out because you're too down now. It sounds like a mafia story, right? Go swim with the fishes or whatever. It's sort of a gradual thing where you have more than been extending of your what you would feel as your energetic field. So what I'm trying to help you to process in the field of psychology is that there's a physicality, meaning in your body, meaning this is custom you, okay? You know, and so if you find, if you're always clenching certain areas, you know, you're always trying to hold on, well, what are you trying to hold on to? You know, and then and look at that and realize, to what degree are you trying to not look at something, not come to realize your needs, or not satisfy your needs. In other words, that's self-sabotage, saying, I'm hungry, but I'm going to starve myself and break down my muscle tissue, my bone tissue, maybe even some brain cells, to the point where I can't function. So that's sort of what the emotional starvation does with this. See, you know, if you get with these emotional, again, I'm using this word because it's in the body, energy and motion. There's a kinesthetic quantum field where the healing really needs to be. Meaning that you can look at it and process it and resolve it, and have it sort of, that's just sort of a cake of its own. Meaning the ingredients that were in that relationship, that I'm kind of bouncing this off of sort of the Vincent Jen idea among other professionals. Look at this as well. Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Abraham Maslow has hierarchy of needs. Dr. Karen Turney, there's a lot of just real mainstream fathers and founders in the field that talk about these layers. And a similar thing, I feel, is experienced with an individual, and that's different depending on how sensitive you are. It depends on a lot of different things. But it's sort of like a cake of its own batter in a specific layer when you look at the devaluation stage. And you must realize then, and I'm going to check the time on this because we're going to try to take this perhaps over a little bit over an hour, and I didn't bring my drink. And so, but we will keep going. I was going to get some water or something, or my coffee, but as I'm just going to bring up, As a Man Thinketh, James Allen. Okay, I mean, classic primer. You know, as a man thinketh, so you become. So we're talking about a certain, like a mousse layer of you that is really sweeter, that has sort of more of a foundation beyond that sort of formulation, that layer of cake, if you will, that's a little bit drier, maybe a little bit staler, or maybe still has a lot of richness to you because you're realizing a lot from that relationship. So if you're learning a lot from the past hurts, then you kind of keep it around, you know, and then you kind of cycle through it, and you might not fully heal because you can simultaneously sort of re-engage the wound and then the healing. So we want to get to sort of a new layer with new ingredients that sort of have incorporations of that lend itself to that emotional mousse, if you will, and not the animal. I'm talking about maybe the cake layer. Yum, right? Something that would melt in your mouth and just be very savory. And so when you're in these relationships that have the engulfing, and some of it might be in the positive, but that when it comes into the negative, where it's like they try to psych you out, nothing you can do is right. In other words, and then you get stuck. They might just be very rude, not look at you, not talk to you, just fill their all their senses with other things. There's the cold shoulder, and just like in psychology, when we talk about that, there's a classic study when they talk about infants that were they were being raised by, I think, Catholic nuns, in a nonprofit, where they were, taken away maybe because of certain situations in the family, and then they were being raised in this nunnery or this, what do you call it, the kind of cloistered away. And they looked at the growth and development of the children, and those children, they sort of did a test, as psychologists do, and they did a study and looked at the infants who were picked up a couple times a day, cuddled, nurtured to, sung to, and then put back, along with their regular feeding and schedule, sleep schedule, and then compared to infants who got the feeding, they got the showering, they got the cleaning, they got the sleep, but they didn't get that extra, that human connection, that warmth, that feeling that someone is here, and it is safe, and I am here, and that sort of beyond words comforting. So what I'm trying to say is there's something I feel, even based on that study, and even, just look at a lot of fields, the great writers. Waldo Emerson talks about a lot of this too in his self-discovery. And then those children who didn't receive that, they didn't grow, they didn't nurture, they didn't put on the pounds, they weren't as alert. So we were talking about this, and when we talk about the devaluation stage, it's sort of, that's where the energy or the life begins to dwindle. And you might have worked really hard, too hard, to the point where you put out your own fire. You were coming from self-doubt, even though you didn't know it. And you were living in self-doubt, even though you didn't know it. In other words, part of the ingredients for whatever it is was a denial of your reality, meaning I am, or I am comfortable, I am uncomfortable. This, and then your needs. So making it like a place for you to grow, just like a fish. Remember those like little fish? You'd put them in a small bowl and they would never grow very large because their environment wouldn't allow it. But if you put the goldfish in a larger fish bowl, the fish bowl would grow, the goldfish would grow to a larger size because the environment allowed it. It's a similar energetic life energy that I feel you're able to then dwell in, live in, be in, that safety, that feeling of I'm able to function my day, and I can come to the table with my boundaries, and I know, if someone tries to come at me with a snake, I can see it coming. In other words, the snake can even start to hiss, and if you're behind, glass, maybe then that you're safe from the snake, but part of you has learned things. So that's part of the manipulation of the narcissist. The psychopath, that is their tool of deception, the omissions of truth, the things that aren't said, the covert, underneath view, okay, the stealth plane of emotions, beyond detection, meaning these people are, dodging in and out of their ability then to be upfront and acknowledge and validate and have empathy of someone's reality. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a terrible feeling that I wasn't able to get your call. I shouldn't have dodged it like that. I shouldn't have let it go this far. I'm sorry, that's a terrible feeling to have made you wait this long. Acknowledging and validating feelings. It's just like a child who does not have a parent that is able to be there with the child in the sandbox, the swing set, the hook and ladders, or whatever you would play on, the slides, and then some, you're trying to get up, and then some kid who might be even 6 months older than you goes, my turn, and then takes you down, and then your mother would be there instead of the kid being crying and not knowing how to make himself stop and pick himself up, and I'll still get a turn, but because the child does not know how to navigate those waters. And so that's when a parent comes in and goes, oh, see that guy, he's this and this, and he's trying to break the rules and not follow in line. It's best, even if you're older, to follow in line, right? And then you would maybe have a teaching opportunity, and then you'd have a kumbaya, come to Jesus, bump chest, bump stomachs, kiss and make up, whatever you would do. You'd have at least some sort of smile. And I think that is medicinal. In other words, in the body, I think it releases neurotransmitters, chemicals, the endorphins, the dopamine, the reward center is then rewarded, meaning you don't have to go scrounging or acting out to get a reward. See, the narcissist is insatiable. So even when they get a reward, you might as well put it in the garbage disposal. They're going to consume it. They're big consumers of relationships that can get them somewhere, that can get them ahead. Here, step on my shoulder so I can get to the attic. Oh, I broke your shoulder, bye, and it's just kind of like that. That's literally what they do, but you can't see it. You can't put it on the table and go, I slipped on the ice. You're not going to believe this. It's very difficult. So M. Scott Peck, who wrote the book People of the Lie and then The Road Less Traveled, his very first sentence, life is difficult. Okay, so this is, it requires, in other words, what does that mean? It's going to require some critical thinking. It's going to require some huff and stuff. It's going to require some processing, getting some gears going, some new understanding forged out, getting, and going, oh man, I'm not stooping that low. I do hold my etheric body like this. And then you don't then look back and say, this is what was taken. You need to claim what it is for the future. But we're getting sort of into a lot of things here. So what I'm trying to state is that, and then even in that study, it was shown then those children even though they were then given food or like a choice, they would then take being nurturing over the food. So there's a real element to an energetic experience of nurturing or something that you would consider less than nurturing. So you can, and so we need, when we talk about healing, we need to get at a new verbiage, a new level of that emotion. So be able to find that graduation of emotions, like the 50 Shades of Grey, what are the 50 steps? Not that they're impossible steps, but what is the sort of little bit of opening up that you have realization or aha moments, meaning, and those aha moments, which we're going to get into pretty soon, should really be feeling good. But realize that the seriousness and the gravity. So even though people might see you shrug it off or just put one foot in front of the other, you'll get there eventually. It's a little bit different when you're psyched out or you're betrayed versus like we were just incompatible. He wanted steak all the time and I wanted tofu. It just ain't working out. You had you were able to process it, come to closure. You didn't feel that you were bleeding emotionally, like that you had maybe even an open or a large or deep wound, meaning ongoing chronic debilitating tension or pain that is causing discomfort and problems within the energies of your body. Because anxiety is a real thing. Stress, chronic stress is a real thing. Your body can be really corroded, I feel, from the inside, then with these very toxic, very potent neurochemicals that are processing when you're being doubted. Because when you're being doubted, when you're going through the narcissist devaluation stage, they aren't showing up the way that you need them to in the relationship. You know, you feel like you're losing the control, and your reality is no longer to your liking, your comfort. And if you're with a psychopath, things can get downright terrorizing. And we need to get a sort of a new message that is within that layer, that exists outside of that degradation. Because you can realize in that layer with them is the secretion of a lot of the cortisol, the stress hormones, the adrenaline, you know. So when you're being cut down, minimized, belittled, meaning, you know, you're just not, they're not hearing you. You don't feel heard. Here's all these things, and they might go, oh, you know, hearing you, please. You've got 2 ears, you're hearing me. You know, they'll do one of those. They're so good that they'll knock you off your feet and they'll get you spinning around. You're seeing stars. You cannot put your feet back down. They're having a hissy fit. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to do this. You can't, and then they'll usually make it some very belittling yet sarcastic, you know, even a 5-year-old could do this better than you. Or they'll, you know, these remarks that are, you know, they're just trying to keep these things going with their etherics, and it will take your field, your energetic fields, really where you're kinesthetically feeling a sense of reality, meaning where your I am in its entirety is not being discounted, minimized, not heard, told something other than what it is. You're wearing blue flowers, not red. Your hair is purple, not this. You know, they're brainwashing your they do that with your feelings. You know, you're clingy, you know, just because you want to have intimacy. Your intimacy can be physical intimacy, but it can be intimacy, which means someone is with you with your feelings. You know, in other words, I don't like eating this. This makes me feel junky. I don't like this. This makes me feel so. You can engage you. Well, then let's not eat this. And then all of a sudden, you know, you say, oh, well, maybe the reality, the real deal is you need nutrition. That's really what's going to satisfy you. You don't need this whole bag of potato chips. You know, maybe you need this tuna casserole, or you need this and this. That's going to be healthier. And you're then not eating all the junk emotions, the junk food, like that give you the highs and then the lows, or the, you know, the carb lows where they just are going to shut you down completely. And then finding these finer tunings about you and able to help enrich your life as a mutual reward. So that's the way the thing should kind of play out in a healthy way. And so it's difficult to recognize, though, one is being minimized while you're in the midst of the minimization. In other words, they kind of put the green smoke out there and then say, you know, and you can't really see. They put sort of just the way that there is so absolute, the way that they exchange, the way that they know what's going on, their authority, something about them is going to be superior, better than, and that requires a touch point, a value judgment to be, and so they always need what I consider like a touchstone. They need others to elevate them, or they need others to follow in their deceit and deception. And then until then, you get to the exposure, or it gets too toxic, because self-doubt, chemically, I feel it can be like a corrosive chemical. Kind of like the way a battery acid would maybe corrode the surface of a car, or something, eat away at. So I literally feel, say, oh, this is really eating away at me. The Apple thing with the big gouge on it, I don't know, but this is really eating away at me. Have you ever, it's almost, you've got this hunger inside of you. Have you ever been so starving, or, so down, you could not even make yourself a meal? You couldn't even order it? These types of situations. Mel Gibbons, she's got the high five. She was the high five. She's talking about how her high five habit. So, and how, that had turned around her life. She's talking about how in her depression, when things went down in her career and such, that, she couldn't get out of her pajamas for 3 weeks. She wore the same pajamas. I mean, this is, you're feeling in the fetal position. You're literally regressing back to, as much as you can, the fetal position. And then your body, even though it hurts to be in the fetal position because you're crunching up, the body is just sort of collapsing. That energetic growth or expansiveness, sort of your reality being able to be functional, is sort of imploding, and that is very uncomfortable. The cut downs, that's the end result. So you don't want to stick around or be part of that segment. You don't want that. You want this just sort of cut off in the cake, if you will, and come down and then say, and then this is your reality, meaning I'm coming to terms, with some clarity, and seeing through that, where, your brain was sort of hijacked, is really truly what happens when you're going through the love bombing, the devaluing. It's really your mind is hijacked, and your body is kind of like, you got to come back here. You got to come to Jesus. You got to pay attention. Oh no, body, I'm going to show you who's boss. I'll starve you out. I'll do this. I'll do that. You overtax and you don't listen. You're not able to engage with your reality. Your own rules begin to get unruly. And one of our viewers had commented about the power of self-talk, and as a man thinketh, it's very important that you learn what I feel is the medicine of self-talk. So, meaning, if you're doing it right, self-talk, meaning you're recognizing the fact of what is that emotional whiplash, meaning, what is it when somebody tries to throw you off your game repeatedly and has these small micro wins? It's usually going to start with a you're. It's usually going to be the blame game. I mean, that's the projection. And then, so if you didn't know other than, so you might have had allowed these in almost like a Swiss cheese, if you will, almost like bullet holes that went through a glass pane or a screen. The way the force of just because the force of whatever it is can then damage, and I am anti-violent. don't like violence. I don't watch. I don't even consume that. I don't even want to consume the image of it right now. But in other words, when the force goes through, I feel it sort of punctures a hole in that layer of your reality. So that reality where the foundation is set properly, where it is based on acknowledgement and a validation and some sharing of those sequences we were referring to earlier. If you get the head turned too many times, you get the cold shoulder, you get the big butt, you get the no text, you get the, without, apologizing, I'm sorry, I can't, you know what we're talking about. So that etheric energy, you have to realize, is going to come back and become rekindled literally in a different connection to a source of something that's way bigger, sort of outside of that playing formula with those. In other words, think of it like, remember the Peanuts? What was that one character that was walking around with the blanket, and she had, a couple circles of dust and dirt around her, Peppermint Patty, or so, in other words, that person, that was like the comical way of saying this person is down, instead of having all that down energy, like the negative self-talk. You have to realize that that is not your reality. That are their wounds. That are their little piercing through that, that I am okay. I am a good cook. I am a good listener. I am, conversing. It's social psychology that you don't, especially now with phones, so much can be used then as those ammunitions. Why didn't you send me 10 hearts? Now you're sending me 5, and then it's like, and that might create a new etheric energy. You have to watch and monitor and govern your etheric field. This is your reality. This is your acknowledgement and validation of your importance, your significance, your authenticity, and your real power as a person. Because if that hasn't been replicated or duplicated, acknowledged and validated, then you're going to be feeling what they call disempowered. And then the habit of that put down, which is like that corrosive acid being excreted by all those neurochemicals, sort of eats you, breaks you down from the inside. Anyone want more stress? If you have to really get into that opt in or opt out, where you find yourself at the crossroads saying, okay, in that layer of cake, maybe it was chocolate, vanilla, pound cake, dry, moist, but you know what? It's really inedible right now, meaning it's not beneficial for my well-being, and I just know it. You can have it a sundry, or you don't even have to explain yourself. And coming back to then the healing is the acknowledgement that you have a reality then based on the positive, what can grow, that's going somewhere, that's motivated, that has inspiration, that brings out your prefrontal cortex, that can dream again, have a positive vision, that isn't corroded by the stress, that isn't corroded by the whatever they did. And you know what it is. You don't have to list it here now. I mean, you know that you know that you know what they did. So you have to begin to allow that to be not saying that it never happened, not saying just you're going to bury it, but realize it has to be almost like a striad of a cake or a layer that sort of, it kind of stops. And then the chocolate mousse starts, or the vanilla mousse, or whatever it is, how you want your reality. your whipped cream, your better layer, or as it evolves with new ingredients through time, it's going to get more savory, more comfortable, more cozy, more the way you want it. Once you give into more of the validation of your drivers and saying, this is what I'm driven to want in reality, and with my checks and balances now, I think that this is better. So now you're like making a discerned reality, and you can say, I'm discerning now. I see it now. I see calm now. I see stability now. I see my better reality now. When your feelings are shared, when you're letting them out, when they're not bottled up, when you begin to speak them out, out loud, in the car, if you're yelling yourself, I am doing this, I am going to earn my degree. I'm going to get certified as a pilot. I'm going to show up for a gardening workshop. I'm going to take better care of myself. I'm going to clean out my fridge and put in something that really reflects a better diet for me. I'm going to throw out everything in my closet on the floor, and I'm going to fill it out with a better validation of how I am comfortable and how I want to present myself to the world. Whether you're a maverick, a pioneer, a follower, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Sometimes you just have to realize, because oftentimes that authority, the narcissist likes to be the authority. It's great to have great leaders. It's terrible to have terrible leaders. And a terrible leader will make you smaller, make you weaker, meeker, and not give you your reality, not hear you out, be with you out. Sort of, what it's a feeling that eventually if you begin to then register deeper within, and you're able to then localize where that tension had been stored or blocked. Like if you're, always, if there's always some way that you're doing something with your body that just, you find yourself, even if you don't want to, during the course of your day, you either lose your keys, burn something in the oven, you find yourself kind of always going back to a similar anxiety state. So then your body will kind of tell you, and you will know that your body is patterned and formatted according to those feelings that are cycling, and rehearing those and reliving those and reincorporating those with your reality until you say no, until you say, okay, that literally belonged there, and and then that tension, so you can then grow in awareness and say, I can calm that now. That doesn't need to be so. That is all sort of incorporated in that exchange, in that energetic. If you wanted, you can just call it an energetic, and realize then that your reality is going to have different energetics, and that it should be sparked by then something that kind of gives you goosebumps or wants you to kind of check it out. And if you don't know it, then say, body, self, please show me today what really motivates me, excites me, tickles me, gives me the goosebumps, and allow me the moment to write these down today. So just speak like a new command to yourself, a little whisper, a new positive self-talk. What I want to kind of end with here is kind of a rule, basically for like 1 in, 10 out. So meaning 1 negative thought in, 10 positive declarations and proclamations out. I am. I am. I am. I am. And then you can even dance to it. I am. Or you might be a guy and you're just like, I am. I am. I am. My cells are all holding together today. My shoulder hasn't fallen off. As far as I know, my feet are still going, and that is good enough, and so be it. Amen. That is awesome. And I'm going to improve. When we talk about the healing and I talk about the resensitization, I'm talking about helping your body get a jump start on feeling better. So you're feeling your life, your reality, what you actually get, feel, do, say goodbye to, cut out the junk food. I'm not walking down that aisle anymore. I'm not even walking down the candy aisle. That's so disgusting. That's, I'm walking past this. I'm walking past the alcohol. I'm walking past that store. I'm walking past whatever it is. You're no longer on the runway of doubt, okay? You're no longer, and you're not having to strut it like Puff Diddy, to show who you are. It's a strength, and when I say about like the rule for 1 in 10 out, meaning if you during your day do something and you find yourself getting constantly aggravated, and you find, or I'm not organized, or you're a procrastinator, where these things are you find that then these things are real barriers. And even if the narcissist didn't believe in you, because they like to be the authority over others, it's okay for you to be the authority over yourself. The narcissist doesn't want you to tap in and recognize that you have authority over self, perhaps because it could be threatening to them. Not because it is threatening, but it could be threatening to them if you have your power. For some reason, they're uncomfortable navigating those waters, so they're going to minimize you through the looks, deeds, the steal, thoughts, whatever the manipulations, the covert things that were withdrawn, the words that weren't said, the actions that weren't acted, those bridges that weren't crossed, that you didn't navigate things together, that leads with that real feeling that you're far, far away. You're in a land far, far away from a happy reality. What the bleep, it makes you, and oftentimes today you have to be the wiser. And in studying, like, for example, well, I'm not going to get back into that. What I want to talk about is the 1 in 10 out. If you're still this far, congratulations. And we're going to talk about this in more videos. And just sort of parlaying off our comments here. So, meaning if you find that you're in a certain predicament that you don't like in your routine, where you keep tripping it up, self-sabotage. Maybe you had gone through a divorce, a separation, and you're trying to meet somebody, and every time you do, you go out and you rip a hole in your shoe, you sweat your shirt off, you dump water all over your pants when you go up to the door. I mean, there's just all sorts of things that can happen, and it happens to everybody. Don't let that keep you out of the game. You can go to and take beautiful pictures, make beautiful food, make friends, have great food, what things then. So we want to get back to sort of that 10 out. So when it comes to being minimized, what is the typical? You are slow, dumb, whatever it is. No, you have the right pace. You're smart. You've got the right pace. You manage this very well with this type of pace. They'll throw you out of pace to the point, where you're not able then to navigate the etherics in a way that you feel that you can regulate them. So that's, I feel, part of the spin-off of a relationship with a narcissist is that sort of, or a psychopath, is that ongoing sort of tail or sort of core presence of the self-doubt that is part of their level of cake, if you will. It's not the mousse. It's not the better, juicier reality that you have, because your eyes and senses and etheric field oftentimes can't resonate or find that or match up with it, get in sync with it, because their cake is getting in the way. All you're seeing, and oftentimes your learning is parlayed as a direct off. So realize that is normal. So if you find yourself with one in, and then you need to have 10 positive self-declarations felt and stated within and without. I am going, and then feeling it. I am going, like Mel Ribbons, or I forgot her name. I'm so bad with the names right now. But one in, you're so slow. I am at the right pace. I am where I should be. I am doing things in their right order. I am doing things appropriately. This is okay for me to move this way and not act otherwise. I don't have to respond out of the cake. So get out of the cake. In other words, realize that there's sort of a layer of your experience that's going to be sort of there. And that can then also sort of change as well. But realize that that's where a lot of these negative secretions, have come from. So we need to really deaden, not like deaden, they will automatically deaden when you do the 1 in, 10 out. You will numb them out. You will feel them out. You'll feel yourself better, more deliberately, sort of getting that little engine within. And it doesn't have to be the engine that the narcissist told you how your life should be, that you're supposed to be such and such a person. You will ruin your life very quickly if you try to do that, and you maybe already know that. So being an authority, peace and harmony, I don't think I could be an authority. Okay, well, there's your 1 in, 10 out. Then okay, we can feel where some of that doubt, where it's still living in your energy field. It's still, you're paying rent for it, okay? You're still hauling in these big flour bags of this stuff if it's still in there. So, you can't be a leader. Yes, I do take the helm. Yes, I do see things up front. Yes, I do see things and notice things that others don't. I do have a perspective. I can have a ticket to the front row line and see reality here, or I can continue to be sort of lost and be way in the bleachers and keep signing in for my ticket there and see things very small. So and then you will say your proclamations, which then declare and alchemize and burn that away. And burn it away. Burn it away with the life energy of your existence. Your mind is a big metabolizer of calories. You literally do burn it away so that your reality, your etheric field, will become a new habit of energy that will help to create it, build it, strengthen it, and recognize it, being like, I'm building this out of this, meaning things are at the right pace. I do see things clearly. I am a leader. I am, and then I do follow up in the skills that I need. And then writing these things down throughout the day. If you're saying, well, I don't know what I would be interested in. I don't know if I can really, okay, yes, I do know what I am interested in. I do know what I really want. I can come up with it. I can put it on pen and paper. I can follow through. I can see what it's like. I can take the experience. I can have it without needing to judge, impress, stress. Okay? De-stress to impress. I just, So in other words, impress yourself. Show to yourself, hey, and then begin to use your recovery dates and your moments and see where this takes you. If you keep corroding it down like like a Roman statue that's weathered for 5,000 years, why do you keep throwing corrosive battery acid into your inner sculpture? Why aren't you making your sculpture out of bronze? Why aren't you making your sculpture out of platinum? Why aren't you making your sculpture out of diamond? Something else available to you, reality, conviction, learning to inhabit these spaces, and learning what this uniquely means for you. What does it mean to be deliberate? What does it mean and feel like to be decisive? What does it, feel like to be 100%? What does it feel like to be 100% and in the pure? So in the pure, meaning not part of, sort of not chafing off of that layer. In other words, those shards, whatever the however you envision it, know how it is for you. And realize that certain directions you can declare as better, important, significant for you, and you can champion your soul in that. And as a man thinketh, he talks about the effect of thought on health in the body. Change of diet will not help a man who will not change his thoughts. When a man makes his thoughts pure, when a man makes his thoughts pure, he no longer desires impure food. So I'm going to leave you with that. We're going to talk more about this in future videos. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful day. Like, share, and comment, and put your questions. We love to hear from you. Have a great one.